The Valentino gown shimmered under the ballroom chandeliers. Emerald silk, hand-beaded bodice, a train that whispered across marble like water. I'd worn it once, 3 years ago, to this same gala. Now Amber wore it. She stood beside my ex-husband Trevor at the bar, laughing, one hand possessive on his arm. The dress fit her differently, tighter in the waist, shorter by 2 inches. She'd had it altered. My dress. The one I'd left behind when I walked away from our marriage with nothing but my dignity and a single suitcase. Divine, isn't it? Amber's voice carried across the St. Regis ballroom. Trevor surprised me. Said it belonged to his charity case ex-wife. But while it a $10,000 dress gathered dust. The women around her, wealthy wives, socialites, influencers, laughed like wind chimes. Sharp and bright and cruel. I stood near the entrance in a simple black sheath from Nordstrom Rack. No jewelry except my grandmother's pearl earrings. My hair pulled back, understated, invisible among the glittering crowd. Exactly as I wanted. Trevor caught sight of me. His jaw tightened. We hadn't spoken since the divorce finalized 18 months ago. Since he'd married Amber 6 weeks after the papers were signed. Since he'd moved her into our Beacon Hill brownstone and given her my life like a hand-me-down coat. Elena. He crossed to me, Amber trailing behind. I'm surprised you could afford a ticket. These tables are $25,000 each. I manage. I kept my voice soft. Barely. Amber's smile was venomous. She twirled, making my dress flare. Look familiar? I had it updated. The original was so frumpy. Trevor said you wore it like a nun. I wear it like it was meant to be worn. The crowd around us had gone quiet, watching. The air hummed with anticipation, sharks scenting blood. It looks different on you, I said. Definitely different. Better, you mean. She stepped closer. Everything's better now that Trevor has someone who actually belongs in his world. No offense, Elena, but you were always playing dress up. I was born for this. Trevor said nothing. Just stood there, silent, letting her eviscerate me in front of Boston's elite. But let me take you back. Let me show you how we got here. 18 months earlier, the smell of jasmine and betrayal. That's what I remember most. My perfume, jasmine. Her perfume, something chemical and sharp. Both scents mingling in my bedroom at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'd come home early from the foundation office. Migraine. The kind that split your skull and made light feel like knives. Found them in my bed. My husband of 7 years. His 24-year-old assistant. My Italian linen sheets tangled around them like accusations. Elena. Trevor didn't scramble to cover himself. Just sat up, casual, like I'd interrupted a business meeting. We need to talk. Amber. I didn't know her name yet. Pulled the sheet to her chin. Her eyes were bright with triumph, not shame. I'll pack my things, I said quietly. Don't be dramatic. Trevor stood, pulled on his pants. Armani. I'd bought them for his birthday. This doesn't have to be ugly. I'll be fair in the divorce. Fair, I repeated. You're a good woman, Elena. But let's be honest, you never fit into this life. The galas, the networking, the social expectations. You're happiest in your little office, doing your charity work. He said charity work like it was a hobby. A pastime for rich men's wives. I want you out by Friday, he continued. Keep whatever you brought into the marriage. The rest stays. This is my house, my money, my world. You were just visiting. Amber laughed. Actually laughed. Trevor, honey, don't be cruel. Give her the dress at least. She looked so proud wearing it last year. I left that night. Took my clothes, my books, my grandmother's jewelry. The lawyer Trevor sent called it an amicable split. I got a modest settlement, $200,000, and walked away from everything else. He married Amber 43 days later. 6 months before the gala, the foundation office was in a converted warehouse in Subby. Exposed brick, secondhand furniture, walls covered with photos of the people we'd helped. Homeless veterans finding housing. Single mothers getting job training. Kids accessing mental health services. This was my real work. Not the society wife performance I'd done for Trevor. This was what mattered. Miss Chun, my assistant, Marcus, poked his head in. The Boston Children's Charity called again. They want to confirm your attendance at the spring gala. I looked up from grant applications. I haven't decided. It's your favorite event. Marcus frowned. You never miss it. Trevor will be there. With her. So, Marcus sat across from me. You've supported that charity for 12 years. Since before you met him. Don't let him take that from you too. I thought about it. About the children who'd benefited. the programs we'd funded, the lives changed. Book the ticket, I said. But keep it quiet. No name on the seating chart. Marcus grinned. Already done. You're listed as anonymous donor, table 12. Table 12. The back corner. The cheap seats, if a $25,000 table could be called cheap. Perfect. Which brings us to now? To this moment. To Amber in my dress, Trevor at her side, and me standing in the shadows of the St. Regis ballroom. Shall we find our table? Trevor's hand rested on Amber's back, possessive, territorial. Elena, good to see you. Try to enjoy yourself. I know these events are expensive on a limited budget. They swept away, Amber's laughter trailing behind them like the train of my stolen dress. I stood alone, watching them join table 1, the donors' table, front and center, where Trevor's company name gleamed on a placard. Sinclair Capital. $5,000 donation. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Sarah Matthews, the charity's director. Almost time. You ready for this? I typed back. Born ready. The ballroom filled steadily. Boston's wealthiest, draped in designer labels and self-importance. I recognized faces from Trevor's world, the world I'd supposedly never belonged to. The Cabots, the Lowells, the Hutchinsons, old money in new tuxedos. Table 12 was exactly where I'd requested. Back corner, partially hidden by a marble column. My table mates were strangers, a tech entrepreneur, 2 physicians, a retired teacher who donated her late husband's estate. Good people. Quiet people. People who wrote checks and asked for nothing in return. We made small talk through the salad course. I smiled, nodded, kept my eyes on my plate. From here, I could see Trevor and Amber holding court at table 1. She'd shed my dress's wrap, showing off the alterations she'd made, the way she'd transformed it into something flashier, louder, more her. Isn't that the Valentino from the spring auction? One of the physicians whispered. The one that went for $15,000? I bid on it. Amber Sinclair. The tech entrepreneur's voice dripped contempt. She posts about it on Instagram constantly, upcycling her husband's ex-wife's cast-offs. She thinks it's funny. My fingers tightened on my fork. The main course arrived. Beef Wellington, roasted vegetables, a Bordeaux that cost more per bottle than most people spend on groceries in a month. I ate mechanically, tasting nothing. At table 1, Amber stood, champagne glass raised, clearly tipsy. Her voice carried a toast to my incredible husband, who saved me from a life of mediocrity, and to his ex-wife. She looked around the room, searching, wherever she is. Thank you for warming the seat, honey. I'll take it from here. Laughter rippled through the nearby tables. Not kind laughter. The cruel kind. The kind that feeds on humiliation. Trevor pulled her down, face flushed. But he was smiling. Embarrassed, maybe, but not angry. The retired teacher at my table touched my arm. Are you all right, dear? You've gone pale. I'm fine. I set down my fork, just remembering why I'd prefer working behind the scenes. Dessert was cleared at 8:47 p.m. The lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the stage where Dr. Sarah Matthews stood, elegant in midnight blue, her silver hair swept up. Good evening. Her voice commanded instant silence. Thank you for joining us for our 15th annual gala supporting Boston Children's Charity. This year, we've helped over 3,000 children access critical services, medical care, counseling, educational support, and safe housing. Applause. Polite, measured, the sound of checkbooks mentally opening. We couldn't do this work without our donors. Tonight, I want to recognize some of our most generous supporters. Sarah clicked her remote. The screen behind her lit up with names and amounts. The Cabot Foundation, $50,000. More applause. Elizabeth Cabot stood, waved, basked in recognition. Sinclair Capital, $5,000. Trevor stood, buttoned his jacket. Amber beamed beside him. $5,000. Enough for a table, a tax deduction, a line item in the program, and many others whose contributions make our work possible. Sarah's voice softened. But tonight, I want to talk about a different kind of donor. The kind who doesn't seek recognition, who gives not for social currency, but because they believe in the work. The room shifted. This wasn't the usual gala script. 15 years ago, a young woman approached us with a proposal. She'd inherited money from her grandmother, a substantial amount, and wanted to use it to help children in crisis. She didn't want her name on buildings or programs. She just wanted to make a difference. My heart hammered against my ribs. Over 15 years, this anonymous donor has given $12 million to our organization. Not in one lump sum, but gradually, thoughtfully, funding specific programs she'd researched and believed in. She volunteers in our offices, reviews every grant application, knows the name of every child we've helped. Amber's face had gone slack. Trevor was staring at the stage, confusion creasing his forehead. Tonight, with her permission, I'm revealing her identity. Because she's here. And because I believe it's time the people in this room understand what real philanthropy looks like. Sarah looked directly at me. Our eyes met across the ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, our founding anonymous donor, the woman who's made everything we do possible, Elena Chun. The spotlight swung to table 12. To me, in my Nordstrom rack dress and grandmother's pearls. The room erupted. Not in applause, not yet. In shock. In whispers that rose like a wave. I stood slowly. My legs felt disconnected from my body. Elena has asked to say a few words, Sarah continued. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage. I walked through the ballroom, past the tables of Boston's elite, past the Cabots and Lowells and Hutchinsons, past Trevor's table, where he sat frozen, champagne glass halfway to his lips, past Amber, who'd gone white as the tablecloth, my emerald dress suddenly looking garish under the lights. The stage steps felt miles high. Sarah embraced me when I reached her, whispered in my ear, "Burn it down, sweetheart." I took the microphone, looked out at the sea of faces. Thank you, Sarah. My voice was steady, stronger than I'd heard it in years. I've stayed anonymous because I didn't want my donations to become about me, about my social standing or my family name. I wanted them to be about the children. I clicked to the next slide. Photos filled the screen. A boy in a hospital bed, smiling despite his four. A teenage girl in a graduation cap. A family in front of their new apartment. These are the faces of what $12 million looks like. Not in a bank account. Not in investments. In changed lives. In futures that wouldn't exist without intervention. I advanced the slides. More faces. More stories. My grandmother left me her entire estate when she died. $23 million. She was an immigrant, a seamstress who built a textile empire through sheer will and brilliance. She told me money was a tool, not a trophy. That wealth meant nothing if it didn't create change. I looked at Trevor. He'd gone gray. So I've lived modestly. Worked full-time at this foundation for 12 years, taking a tiny salary, enough to cover rent and expenses. I've funded programs, not galas. Children's futures, not designer dresses. Amber's hand flew to her throat. She was looking down at the dress, my dress, like it had turned to snakeskin. I'm revealing myself tonight because I'm tired of watching people measure worth in dollars spent on themselves rather than dollars invested in others. I'm tired of watching wealth become performance instead of responsibility. The room was silent, utterly silent. Boston Children's Charity will continue to have my support. We're expanding our mental health services, our housing programs, our educational initiatives. And I'm challenging everyone in this room to ask themselves, what are you building with your wealth? A legacy? Or just a lifestyle? I handed the microphone back to Sarah. The applause started slowly, then built. A standing ovation that rolled through the ballroom like thunder. Everyone stood. Everyone except Trevor and Amber, who sat frozen at table 1, the $5,000 placard suddenly looking obscene next to the truth. The applause followed me off the stage. Sarah squeezed my hand as I passed her, pride and vindication in her eyes. I'd made it 3 steps before Trevor intersected me. Elena, wait. His voice cracked. 12 million? You had 23 million this whole time. Had. I stopped, turned. Have, Trevor. I still have 11 million. Invested. Growing. Waiting to be put to use. His face cycled through emotions, shock, anger, confusion, calculation. Always calculation with Trevor. You let me think you were nobody. That you brought nothing to the marriage. I brought everything to the marriage. My voice was calm. Love. Partnership. Support. I ran your household. Hosted your clients. Smiled through your condescension. What I didn't bring was financial dependence. That's not the same as bringing nothing. Amber appeared at his elbow, mascara smudged. The dress, my dress, looked wrong on her now. Like a costume she'd been caught wearing. You were playing poor? Her voice pitched high, hysterical. This whole time, you were rich, and you let everyone think. I let people assume what they wanted to assume. You saw a quiet woman in modest clothes and decided I was worthless. That says more about you than me. But the settlement. Trevor's mind was working, catching up. You took 200,000. You could have fought for millions. I didn't want your money, Trevor. I had my own. I smiled. The settlement was enough to make the divorce quick and clean. I wanted out more than I wanted to punish you. So this is punishment. He gestured at the ballroom, the staring crowd. Humiliating me in front of everyone. This isn't about you at all. I stepped closer. This is about showing people what matters. You donated 5,000 tonight. Enough for a table and a tax write-off. I've donated 12 million over 15 years. We're not playing the same game, Trevor. We never were. Amber's hand shook as she touched the dress. You let me wear this. Let me alter it. You knew I'd be here tonight wearing it, and you set me up. I didn't set you up. I simply showed up. I looked at the dress, the butchered hemline, the gaudy alterations. You made that dress about you. About performance. It was never meant to be that. Just like the life you're wearing now, my old life. It doesn't actually fit you. You just convinced yourself it does. Dr. Matthews approached with a couple in their 60s. Elena, I'd like you to meet the Harringtons. Their foundation wants to discuss matching your donation. I nodded to her, then looked back at Trevor one last time. Be happy, Trevor. Sincerely. But understand that wealth isn't about what you own or wear or display. It's about what you do with it when nobody's watching. I walked away. This time, he didn't follow. The rest of the gala passed in a blur of handshakes and conversations. Donors who'd written $1,000 checks approached me with humility, asking about the foundation's work. The Cabots invited me to lunch to discuss collaboration. Elizabeth Lowell, who'd ignored me for 7 years at these events, apologized directly. I thought you were a social climber, she said bluntly. Married Trevor for his money. I'm sorry I never looked deeper. People see what they expect to see, I said. I'm as guilty of that as anyone. At 11:34 p.m., I found myself alone on the terrace, overlooking the Boston Common. The air was cool, clean, free of jasmine and betrayal. Sarah joined me, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. You did it. You actually did it. I just told the truth. You changed the conversation. Half the people in there are rethinking their giving strategies. She clinked her glass against mine. And Trevor Sinclair looks like he aged 10 years. That's not why I did this. I know. That's what makes it so perfect. Sarah sipped her champagne. What now? You're out in the open. Your quiet life is over. I thought about it. About the freedom of anonymity versus the power of visibility. Now I use it, I said. If people know my name, know my resources, maybe I can challenge them to do more. Give more. Be more. The foundation? I'm increasing my support. 2 million annually, guaranteed for the next 5 years. And I want to launch a new program. Teaching financial literacy to women in crisis. How to build resources, hide assets if needed, prepare exit strategies from bad situations. Sarah's eyes glistened. Women like you were pretending to be. Women like I chose to appear to be. There's a difference. I finished my champagne. I had resources and education. Most don't. Let's change that. 3 months later, I stood in a converted warehouse in Dorchester at the ribbon cutting for the new Chun Financial Empowerment Center. Not named after me, named after my grandmother, Li Chun, whose face smiled from the wall mural. The woman who'd built an empire and taught me that wealth was responsibility, not reward. The center offered free services, financial counseling, legal aid, job training, emergency funds for women leaving dangerous situations. Everything I'd wished I could have provided to the women who'd needed it over the years. Dr. Matthews spoke at the opening. Then a woman named Maria, who'd used our services to leave an abusive marriage and start a catering business. Then my assistant Marcus, who'd been with me through everything. When it was my turn, I kept it brief. My grandmother used to say, money whispers to those who respect it and screams at those who worship it. This center is about teaching women to make money whisper, to use it as a tool, not let it become a cage. The applause was warm, genuine, real. In the crowd, I spotted an unexpected face. Dorothy, Trevor's mother, whom I'd loved like my own. We'd stayed in touch quietly. Lunch every few weeks, phone calls when she needed to talk. After the ceremony, she embraced me. He knows he's a fool. Dorothy, let me say this. She held my shoulders. Trevor called me last week. He's miserable. Amber left him, found someone wealthier, took half his assets in the divorce. She smiled sadly. The universe has a sense of irony. I don't take pleasure in that. I know you don't. That's why you're extraordinary. She glanced around the center. This is what success looks like. Not the house, or the car, or the dress. This. We talked for an hour. She told me about her volunteer work with literacy programs. I told her about the expansion plans, centers in 5 cities within 2 years. When she left, she hugged me again. Your grandmother would be so proud. That night, alone in my apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in Jamaica Plain, not the brownstone I'd left behind, I looked at the photo on my desk. Grandmother Lee, age 35, standing in front of her first factory. Determined. Fierce. Uncompromising. I'm doing it right, I told her. Or not. The answer came not from the photo but from the stack of applications on my desk. 50 women signed up for the center's first session. 50 lives potentially changed. That was the answer. Trevor had wanted me to be small. Amber had mocked me for being humble. They both measured worth in designer labels and social currency. But I'd learned from a woman who'd crossed an ocean with nothing and built everything. Who'd understood that real wealth wasn't what you accumulated. It was what you multiplied by giving it away. The dress Amber had worn, the one she'd altered and mocked, now hung in my closet. She'd returned it after the gala, left it at the foundation office with no note. I'd had it cleaned, restored to its original design. I donated it to an auction benefiting women's shelters. It sold for $40,000. Trevor's $5,000 donation suddenly seemed even smaller. I didn't go to the auction, didn't need the recognition or the vindication. Just sent the dress with a note. May it serve someone who needs it more than I did. Because that's what my grandmother taught me. That's what Trevor never understood. That's what Amber will probably never learn. Wealth isn't what you wear. It's what you build. Not for yourself, for others. For the women who need escape routes. For the children who need second chances. For the futures that hang in the balance. Waiting for someone to tip the scales toward hope. I'd worn that dress once as Trevor's wife, playing a role in his world. Now it would keep women warm, feed children, create possibilities. That was the greatest revenge of all, not humiliating my ex-husband, but transforming what he'd dismissed into something that mattered. The quiet woman in modest clothes wasn't poor. She was just investing differently. And in the end, her returns were infinite.